you, John. First of all, I have to thank you for bringing good weather to UK, and that nicely complements the nice program that John has put together. And we have to thank his team and himself. Last time we had an excellent time. I'm hoping that tonight would be another great night, John.
We do our best. We do our best.
Right. The topic that I've chosen for my today's talk is actually it's a bit outside my expertise. Now, why did I come up with this topic and why am I presenting? We were discussing through email with John, the topics for this conference, and I suggested a topic, and John said, "Can you present it?" And John, is being such a nice person, when he asks you something to do something, you just say yes. So I'm hoping that I won't let him down. So really, I'm looking at HD. My expertise is really physical layer, but as my hobby, I'm following the HD 3D activities. So what I would like to do really today, this is the agenda for my talk today, is give you, what is happening in the UHD, Ultra HD definition. Yesterday, John Zabriskie from BBC gave you a flavor of what UHD is all about, but at a higher level, in fact, what has been happening. And then today, we were given a flavor of what is going to happen in the television industry or viewing industry in the future. So it's nice that my talk falls in between. So I'm going to talk about what is happening in Ultra HD today and how it would interact or how it would accommodate 3D. Now, Sony has been very much involved with 4K, and I would show today that really it's in a unique position to provide Ultra HD today, not tomorrow. Some of the presentation material here is actually being given at the NAB 2013. So if you have been at NAB 2013, you may have seen some of this already. Let's start with the introduction and definition, because there's a lot of terminology used inside the UHD. So I thought it would be good to define. In fact, John, defined some of this yesterday, but I thought for me the easiest way to understand UHD is by looking at this clip that David Wood has created about 2 years ago. I think probably those who are in Europe knows David Wood very well. David Wood is a quite famous expertise. He chairs both the commercial module on the UHD and the commercial module on the UHD. So he put this presentation together about 2 years ago. So let's listen to him and see how he defines UHD. Do we have sound?
Broadcasting. This is the ITU, the International Telecommunications Union, here in Geneva, Switzerland. And engineers have gathered here from all around the world to decide what happens to television in future. It's called Ultra High Definition Television, UHD TV. Now, it's not something for tomorrow, but you can be sure it's something that our children will enjoy. And here are some ways to get to grips with UHD TV. This is a camera that I bought in 2004. It's one I'm not going to show you my holiday pictures on it, but it has a label on the back that says 2 megapixels. So the camera is capable of resolution of 2 million pixels. And this is about the same resolution as you get with a high definition television broadcast. Now this other camera is one that I bought just recently, and it has a label on it of 10 megapixels. So this is about equivalent to the lower of 2 levels of ultra-high definition television. This is equivalent to what's called the 4K layer. Now there is an 8K layer, and that's the one that's on the picture behind me. That has 32 million pixels, 32 megapixels. We can't buy cameras like that today. Imagine that this is a normal television picture, maybe like the one that you're watching right now with us on it. Now, when you make a standard definition television program, this is the space you have to play with. When you go to high definition, you have a larger palette for your work. And it's about like this. It's 4 or 5 times the amount that you have with a standard definition picture. And when we go up to ultra-high definition, we have even more space to play with. So if we go first of all to our 4K level, this is what we have to play with when we make our television programs. What about when we go to our 8K level, the 32 megapixel level? Well, the space available, the palette, is like this. You see, it's very large indeed, plenty of space for lots of detail, lots of action. This is 32 megapixel UHD TV. And to go with these fantastic pictures, you need fantastic sound as well. And there are 2 ways of providing it in this demonstration. One is to have columns of loudspeakers built up around the room. The other way, which is a bit less obtrusive in the home, is to have a row of loudspeakers along the top and along the sides of the display. In either case, you can tell where the sound direction is, laterally, horizontally, or vertically. This is 22.2 channel audio. But what we need this extra quality for? I mean, we choose a program based on what it is, not the technical quality, don't we? Well, that's true, but there is more to it, because the quality affects the relationship that you have with the television program. And the first thing that happens as you increase the quality is that the level of stress you experience goes down. You feel calmer, your pulse rate goes down. And also, this means that you perceive the program to pass more quickly. So the perceived duration of the program is shorter. And also, your sense of involvement, your emotional involvement in the content grows as the quality rises. And all these 3 things add up to this. The zapping moment, the point where you change channel or change program, gets longer. The higher the quality, the longer you'll watch the program, all other things being equal. And this is the key reason for having these higher qualities. It gives the viewer more enjoyment, more involvement, and they watch the program for rather longer. And it may be that with a system like the 32 megapixel UHD TV system, that duration may even be doubled.
In Japan, we believe that we can start test broadcasting of ultra-high definition television as early as the year 2020, but we'll try to bring forward that start as early as possible.
There is a famous social scientist, Marshall McLuhan, who coined the phrase, "the medium is the message." He meant that it is technology and what it is capable of doing that changes society rather than any particular program or content we see. Well, if this is true, how do you think ultra-high definition television is going to change broadcasting or society in the years ahead?
So you agree that this is the best way to describe UHD in very simple terms. So that's the reason for me liking it, and I wanted to share with you. I apologize to experts amongst you, but you know UHD a lot better than this. Now let's recap what David just said in one slide. We were back here, and then we're now really HD is worldwide stream, I think, or worldwide availability of HD is quite known. And every time now we're moving, I think in that video clip you saw that there were predictions for 2020, and I'm going to show today that UHD is here today. And I'd like to say that we are now in this time zone. And what the NHK is doing in Japan is shaping things to come. And that would be perhaps the 2020 time scale that Nishida-san referred to in that video graphically. And you can see, so let's look at the definition. So standard definition is 0.34 megapixel. And then we move to full HD, and that's 2.1 megapixel. So going from SD to HD, gone a 6-fold increase in resolution. And then we've already moved from HD to UHD, which now there are two different definitions or resolutions here. UHD1, this was again, as John yesterday said, there has been a recommendation by ITUR BT 2020, and they've defined two levels of ultra high definition. One is called UHD1 and the other one is called UHD2. In UHD1, you have two different resolutions. There's a 4K resolution, which is for really digital cinema, and it's 4096 by 2160. And there is another 4K or UHD1, and that's called QFHD. That stands for quad full high definition. That because it's basically 4 times HD TV, and that's slightly lesser resolution. That's 3840 by 2160, and this is what you would hopefully see in your living rooms. And then we are going to move to UHD2, which NHK has been calling super high vision. And that's 7680 by 4320. And that would be 4 times doubling, quadding the rate of the UHD1. So really, going from SD to HD, we're going to have 100-fold increase in resolution, which is an incredible increase in resolution. So, having done the terminology, let me show what Sony is doing in 4K. And before going to that details of what Sony is doing in the 4K content creation and the production and delivery, I have to let you know that it's been emphasized a number of times that we shouldn't only concentrate on increasing the resolution. When expanding to the upper circle, all these factors are going to be important. So the resolution is only one dimension we should look at, and we should also look at the higher dynamic range, also higher frame rate, and also try to accommodate 3D as much as possible. And I will show you how Sony is trying to achieve all this. So let's move to my next agenda item. I'm going to show you that here, in fact, Sony is quite blessed with a unique opportunity here, because we create the content and we've got the production, the professional production, and also the display technology. So all the interesting products that we were talked about just a few minutes ago, you really need content. The display is good to produce a display, but you have to start with the 4K content. So, and the way to produce the content, you need acquisition platforms. So Sony can bring the 4K from the lens to your living room, or it can provide you the 4K content in theaters, in public places. So we've got the acquisitions, we've got the productions, and we've got the distribution channels, and we've got the exhibitions, both in public places, in theaters, and home. So the whole value chain is there. Let me give you examples of each one. Let's start with the acquisition. So this is today. These are not bespoken products. These are products you can buy today or already being sold. Sony has produced a range of 4K cameras, and there are F55, F65, and F5. And in fact, already up to April 2013, there are 2,000 of these Cine Alta 4K cameras being sold, delivered, and industry already using that. That's producing. There are some of them are entry levels, and some of them they provide ultimate quality. Also, in addition to the cameras, Sony recently announced, I'm going to give you product model, because then just to emphasize the fact that these are products available, these are not prototypes. Sony recently announced the HXR IFR5, and that allows the 4K raw data to be taken from the cameras and then delivered to next FS700 cameras, and then to be stored on memory. And then in terms of content, you see here that, as I said, the full value chain is here. Already, if you go to EU cinemas in Europe or around the world, then you would see Sony's 4K cameras in operation. And then in terms of delivery, you would see, I'll show you that you can get projectors, you can get players, you can get content. And the range is increasing day by day. Right, now, it's not only professional products that Sony is producing. In fact, Sony has produced a 4K consumer camcorder. So even people like me and you can buy this 4K camcorders and start shooting in 4K. In terms of display, again, Sony produced the 84-inch model. And in fact, some of you may have already seen this in action in some of the trials that have taken place. That was quite expensive, reasonably, $25,000. So what Sony has done recently announced the two models, so you don't need to take up the roof of your house and take them in, as James was hinting at before. And we've already got a technology demonstration of a 56-inch OLED. And I would also, we've got a 4K, so it's good to shoot, to produce, but then you have to deliver it to the households. How do you do that? So now we've got provisions for doing that as well. And there are a lot of efforts because of in the Sony Picture Entertainment to master some of the old movies in 4K, and that's, according to my colleagues who are experts, they say it's an easy job because most of the original films have been shot in 35mm, and they can remaster them in 4K resolution. Again, for 4K distribution services, at NAP 2013, Sony announced that they would be bringing out a 4K media player. And this, again, I've given you a model number here, and if you Google this, you will see that is already, you can, I think the plan was for this summer, so we are in summer, so it might be already available. This is going to be sold under $700 in the USA first. And I'm just going to make sure that I don't miss out some of its key. So this media player originally would be bundled with 10 4K films, and I'm sorry, I'm quite a boring guy. I don't go to cinema as much, but my colleagues and others, friends who go to cinema, they say these are quite exciting titles. So you can, when you buy this 4K media player, it comes bundled with these 10 titles in 4K. In terms of what is happening in the content for the cinema, there is some original 4K, as I said, some of them already in 4K, and there is a lot of efforts in the industry to produce 4K content for cinema. I've given some examples here, and the list, as I said, is growing day by day. And some of these films are being shot by the cameras like the Cine Alta F65 that I showed earlier. Some of the Hollywood blockbusters are actually, some of the famous producers are using these 4K cameras to shoot in 4K. I've seen the trailers of these two. It looks to me quite an interesting film or content. And I've been told that this film is really scary. So for those amongst you that who love scary movies, probably you should see this. It may be quite an immersive experience when seen in 4K. And also in the music industry, some famous singers like Taylor Swift have been trying to shoot their video clips in 4K and using F65. So it's not only in movies, some video clips, and it's also been made in 4K quality. As I said, Sony wanted to bring 4K to your home, to your living room, and to do that, obviously the 84-inch model was too big, and perhaps only people like George Michael could have afforded two of them. So now they've produced the X9 series, and you can now pre-order them, I think even in the UK, and the price tag for them in the USA is about 5K to 7K, so 5K and 7K range. So in the UK, perhaps a 4K to 6K range. I don't have the exact figures. I'm definitely saving up to buy one of these, smaller version of it. So they're not only 4K, as I said, the new range, this X9 series, would all be smart. They would be LED based. They all comes with 3D. They support up to 240 Hz refresh rate and over 1 million dynamic contrast ratio, and some other features. I've just listed some of the main ones here. So it's already available to purchase. In terms of, again, going back to the exhibition or cinema and theaters, Sony originally produced some 4K projectors, and we are actually into, I think, the second generation or even third generation of Sony projectors for the cinema. Up to 15,000 of these Sony 4K cameras, projectors have been sold worldwide. That's a big figure. So there is a new model, again I'll give you the model, it's SRX R515 projectors, which is going to be a lot more advanced. and is promised to be, as I said, I think it's the second generation. It's a lot better than the first generation. Now, that's not all Sony is interested in or is doing. In fact, Sony is also supporting other 4K developments. Here, we've been quite a busy partner for some of the big industries like EDU and SMPTE organizations. So we've been contributing to the development and testing of new technologies using the complete, as I said, program chain. And a recent example is the EDU. We use Alta F65 cameras to generate test sequences for 4K testing and evaluations. And then on this corner, the XAVC codecs. This is the recently announced Sony XAVC codec. This is using MPEG-4 and AVC-H.264 compression. And Sony has licensed this to major industry suppliers, and is a platform for which a number of consumers and professional production tools will be developed. And in this corner, we've got an example of a trial that has taken place and which Sony took part in. And here is a live picture from a snapshot of that trial. I'll give you more example of this later. Here you see an example of the Sony 84-inch model. This was with the SES, and actual delivery of 4K content with a satellite link. So it was an interesting development. Right, another dimension to what Sony is doing in 4K. This is all to show you that how Sony is dedicated and how Sony is serious about 4K. And in fact, this outside broadcasting truck that you see that is being built, this would eventually be attached to a truck that can go and have, facilitates outside broadcasting. And this is being built in the same building that I work in. This is in Sony Village in Basingstoke. These trucks are being put together. And this was ordered by Telegenic, and it's being built right now for outside broadcasting. In terms of studio production, again, Sony has produced equipment to support that. This was announced again at NAB 2013. Here, Sony has developed a camera adapter that attaches to the 4K camera. As John was saying yesterday, the raw 4K content, the bitrate is huge. And you have to get that raw data to your studios by some means. So we've got this unit which is called, again, the model number is CA4000. And what it does, it takes the raw output data from the camera, and then it supplies it to a baseline processing unit here, and delivers it through a standard SMPTE fiber. And then you can from this raw data, you can actually extract either HD or QFHD output. I'll show you in this slide, next slide. Let me go through this. So there are different options for how you would actually can, process the 4K coming out of the camera. There is these options of stitching two 4K scenes together. That's the 4K for 4K. And then there's also options of what they call HD down converts. So these processing units, this SRR1000, you can get the data through them, the raw data, and then you can either have extract or down convert to 1080i or 72p. Or you can have HD cutout. So you have a big screen here, and you can then extract the scenes from a 4K content. A lot of opportunities for post-production or later in studio production. Also, this was again shown in and demonstrated at NAB 2013. You have an option of a multi-view, so the viewer can select which scene. Particularly, this is interesting for sports events, and the viewer can select, scenes from a sports event, or you can have a single view. That's also possible. Right now, I've quite exhausted what Sony has been doing, and hopefully to show you, what is happening in 4K today and what Sony is trying to provide. And I think this is not the range. I think watch this space, because, as I said, there is a lot of other products that are coming out of Sony in the 4K arena. Now I'm going to explain some of the delivery platforms for UHD. So as I said, once you make this, you have to deliver this to the viewers. In this slide, I'm trying to show what is possible today and what is going to be possible soon, and what the future holds for UHD, either 1 or UHD 2. These are the standards developed in Europe, and in fact nowadays you can easily say that some of them have become worldwide standards, so they're not purely Europeans. So the terrestrial market, second generation of terrestrial standard DVB-T2, second generation of satellite standard DVB-S2, second generation of cable DVB-C2. In the terrestrial market, trials of delivery of UHD has already taken place. So given it a tick. S2 trials have already taken place. I would show you examples of this. In the C2, I'm sure a lot of cable operators are very keen, and in fact they are better equipped to deliver UHD1, but they are keeping quiet. So I'm not aware of what they are doing, but I'm sure they are very keen to deliver UHD1 at least. So, and then the standard allows that, easily supports 4K delivery. And then things would dramatically change when we got better hardware and available hardware when H.265 hardware comes to the market. So then you can use all these different standards, and then hopefully half the compression or increase the compression capabilities of the media codecs. And then instead of supporting, for example, in trials, there's been one 4K program per channel raster, but hopefully with H.265, you'll have the opportunity to have more than one 4K program per multiplex. So this is soon. I think this is now emerging. And what would happen in the future, as Jim said a few minutes ago, there is a standard being developed in the US. And I'll put USA plus because I think you know that Canada and some of the South American countries are also interested in this. And also the hope is that it may eventually be a standard that many other countries that are looking at the second generation would be also interested in adopting, hopefully. So that's the pluses for that. So ATSC 3.0 is also one of its system requirements to deliver UHD1. And in Japan, they're looking at the second generation of both terrestrial and satellite. So that's why the X is there. So that can be T2 or can be S2 in Japan. Hopefully, when the H.265 comes about, they would be able to either deliver 4K or 8K, the super high vision that they've been promising. In fact, Japan, as you saw in the video clip, has always been talking about 2020, but I think things have changed. They've now become interested in UHD1 delivery through the satellite. So you may see something earlier in Japan in this area. Let me give you some examples of the trials that have already taken place. In IBC 2012, there was some demonstrations of 4K. But all these trials that you see, they all happened in 2013. And that's what I think that would be, 2013 would be a key date for UHD. And I think that's the year that we would see the HD to UHD transformation. This was a trial that took place 4K via DVB-T2 at Mobile World Conference. This was a 4K trial by DVS2 demonstrated at DVB 2013 and at MIPV in April 2013, so a few months ago. This is my understanding of how the rollouts of UHD or further experimentations would take place. I've divided this into terrestrial and satellite. As I said, I'm not so sure what's happening in the cable market, so I've missed that section. So I'm going to concentrate on what my understanding of the terrestrial and satellite market is in relationship with the UHD. On the terrestrial side, both RAI of Italy and CSA of France have shown an interest in UHD1. And their hope is that once HEVC is a little bit mature, they will combine it with DVB-T to go from HD to UHD, the transition. And we know that KDS in Korea has experimenting with UHD1. And that they've been using DVB-T2 and HEVC. These are according to my information. And also, from what the information I gathered, they're keen to roll out of UHD2 ahead of NHK in 2008. We'll see. Obviously, everybody, as soon as you see a UHD, everybody thinks of NHK. So, and they've been the first people who've been promoting perhaps UHD. And they've always said that UHD to roll out by 2020. And that's based on polarized MIMO plus HEVC. This is the long term. And I think, as I said earlier, I've seen information that indicates that Japan might be interested in UHD1 through the satellite in 2016-17 timeframe. So a little bit earlier. And in fact, even in UHD2, they're hoping to bring it, to 2018. Again, according to my information. SES, again, the satellite market, they have completed proof of concept for UHD1 delivery. What they've done, they've used H.265 at 20 megabits per second. In fact, they have test broadcasting. Sky Deutschland is interested in UHD1 rollout in 2015. Eutelsat completed proof of concept of UHD1, and they also have test broadcasting. So a lot is happening, or a lot would happen soon. Another hot from the press, this news that Sony 4K is going to be trialed in Brazil. And this is quite an interesting development, because it's very important that some trials takes place to show the 4K workflow. Here is, you want to deliver a live event, and you have to know, as John yesterday showed, there was a lot behind how these Olympic Games were broadcasted to some selected audiences. I think the same sort of trial is going to take place this time with real equipment and real production equipment. So everything would be real, it no longer bespoke. So this would take place soon in Brazil. And in fact, the content itself won't be screened to an external audience. As I said, the main focus is for the trial is for the evaluation of the technical and challenges, and then look at also the applications that are possible. So it's a real trial. Look at the next slide. I'm going to. Another important factor, obviously, as we said, higher resolutions means higher bit rate. So, something missing from this slide, maybe. The 4K native broadcasting was up to now was at 40 megabits, average of 40 megabits per second, or requires that sort of bit rate support. And then with HEVC promising to increase the compression ratio of the video coding, we're hoping to drop to this type of bit rates. And this is where we are today. So we're really down here, and we've been trialing with that, and we hopefully want to drop somewhere in between. And here I've shown some of the standards that I just shown you, the EU broadcast rates possible with each one. So you can see that even today, as some people have shown, DVB-T2 can support, without the HEVC, the 4K native. And the cable also has got good capabilities, and satellite also. Now, I posed a question at the beginning of my title. What is the relationships of UHD with 3D? These are my personal thoughts, and I'm going to summarize this in only one slide. And this is what I think my predictions for the 3D. And I use the relaunch or reintroduction of 3D for a reason that I will explain. Yesterday, again, in John's presentation, one of the viewers had said this comment. I've got it here. Hopefully, I'm being faithful to the comment. He said when he saw the UHD, it was better than 3D. The reason that people come up with this type of comment is, for those of you who have seen UHD, in the true UHD, you would see a virtual depth. And sometimes the picture is so crisp and so clear, it actually gives you a 3D effect. So, how does this help? So, what are we saying in the UHD, particularly in the 4K? My opinion is that 4K development requires, as we just said, an expanded bandwidth availability to be able to deliver it. So all the people involved in the delivery are forced to provide this extra bandwidth. And then also, when people are subjected or given this 4K content, it's going to give them an immersive viewing, to give them a virtual picture depth. All these two simple factors combined together, I think it would lead to the fact that we are better equipped in the future to deliver 3D content. At the moment, the way we deliver 3D content, say on the terrestrial link, you've got an HD stream, and if you wanted to support 3D, you have to break it into two SD standard definition pictures. That in itself sometimes brings the quality down. When with the 4K, if you got the 4K bandwidth and you give it to the 3D delivery, that means that 2 HD streams. So you don't have this drop in quality, and that helps. That really tremendously is going to help. So my view is that that first one, that would lead to the first one. And then also, when the viewers see the UHD quality, then it whets their appetite to go after true 3D content. But there are some provisions. I've shown it here symbolically here. I think we have to ditch the 3D glasses. It's just not going to work with the 3D glasses. We have to look at standards that do not require 3D glasses. UHD equipment manufacturers should agree on a unified 3D delivery concept and integrate it into the workflow. That's another provision, in my opinion. And also, a substantial growth in native 3D content is essential. That's always been missing. And I think now is a good opportunity. While people are busy with 4K, the 3D people should come in and produce their content, and when the platform is ready, to deliver it. So that's my point of view on how these things. So in general, my opinion is that 4K is not, is going to be a complementary platform for 3D. And it also it allows a relaunch of 3D viewing in the future. Let me summarize other points. So 2013 is a key date, I think. This is the year why what I've shown you hopefully would be the year that HD to UHD transition at least would take place or start to take place this year. And I've also hopefully shown you that Sony has got a unique market position and is really dedicated to 4K development and aiding this transition. Seriously, seriously, seriously. And another key parameter for this to be successful is that availability of this HEVC codecs. And to make it, make the better use of spectrum efficiency. This concludes my talk, and as I said, I will try to answer your questions as much as possible. If there are some technical questions beyond my expertise, I know a man who can answer that. That's Peter Sykes, my colleague, and this is his email address. If you wanted information in any of these products that today I talked about, you can go to this website and you can get information on any of them. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your nice presentation. And one of your beginning slides, you mentioned that there's like a big difference in resolution between imaging 8K and 5K and 4K, which is about 4 times of the resolution. So is there going to be such a difference or improvement on bandwidth on 8K comparing to 4K as well as 4K comparing to HD?
Yes. That is why NHK is looking at polarized MIMO. So basically, you've got 2 streams coming. One coming to the horizontal and one coming to the vertical. So that's why you've got 2 simultaneous streams coming in. In fact, that's how you support it. And polarized MIMO is key to HK delivery.
So we get like improvement on to get bandwidth for the like different streamings on 8K as well.
Yes.
For the future.
Yes. That's the key requirement for 8K delivery.
So you talked about spatial resolution. Do you have an opinion on frame rate? And do you think Sony will adopt 100 frames a second or maybe 300 seconds, something that is good for Europe? And
they are not part of the standard at the moment, as John said. So really, we've always been trying to follow the standard as much as possible. That's where we get involved. And it's usually a unanimous decision. Sony can't, it's proved to us that we can't, go on proprietary definitions. We have to follow standardized parameters if you want to be successful. But if there was a strong argument to go 100, I'm sure, and my colleagues who go to this standardization meetings are convinced, I'm sure Sony is not going to oppose it. But I do appreciate that frame rate is also quite an important parameter to address.
Yeah, you showed some sports there. Have you got a personal opinion on, is 60 frames a second good for sports or more, do you think?
For the first generation of UHD1 is good, but I do agree that we have to move to higher frame rates. Yes.
Thank you for the presentation. So you showed two sides, the physical display side and then the delivery side. And the natural question would say, which is ahead and which will be the first to come to the dead end? For example, we need more MIMO, we need more compression. Is it more difficult to provide larger displays with higher resolution, or to design as an expert in the physical layer, design physical layer or the display, physical layer algorithms? So which will be the
As Sony, we can do certain activities on our own, and then the rest has to be complemented by the broadcasters, by the content providers. That's why we knew that maybe the delivery platform would come with some delay. That's why we've gone for the 4K media player. So we're going to deliver you the 4K content through other means up until the physical layer matures up and can deliver the 4K content through any terrestrial, satellite, or cable. Actually, cable is already equipped to do that, but it depends on the cable operators to do that. But as I said, we haven't stopped there. We said, look, people want this 4K content. In fact, this 4K, the people who buy this 4K media player in the USA, not only they get this 10 content for free, they also can register and go to a fee-based subscription, and they get the 4K content in the future. But I do agree that we also need a platform, whether it's terrestrial or satellite. So already with T2, combining T2 and HEVC, we can do that. Hopefully HEVC is there already, and we've seen demonstrations of some hardware. But for the 8K delivery, I think we have to wait a little bit longer. And then because I don't know how to say this to be politically correct. I have my doubts about polarized MIMO delivery when there is no line of sight. But I'm sure my colleagues in Japan, they're experts in what they're doing, and they will get things sorted.
And quickly, which standard will be dying because of UHD TV? Will it be terrestrial, cable, satellite? Which one will be the first to give up and say, oh, I cannot go anymore?
Our hope is that they all live. None of them die, to be honest. Because for us, Sony has got the figure in all these markets, and we really hope all of them, none of them would die. And in fact, it would help. ATSC3 in America is using this type of reasoning to tell the FCC, look, you need your terrestrial market to deliver this to everybody in the USA. So these are all trying to support all the possible platforms.
So very interesting talk, illustrating how the signal processing community is struggling to keep up with the needs of the display community and the ambitions of the display community. And so it's groups like this, I guess, the BTS Society that's involved in looking at these new ways of signal processing in order to achieve these results. So please could you join me to thank Hosein in the usual way for his interesting